start today with a real dignitary regarding AI, which is Virginia Dignum, and she will talk about trustworthy AI systems and labor markets. Virginia is professor of social and ethical artificial intelligence at Umeå University here in Sweden, and she's also the scientific director of the Wallenberg program on Humanities and Society for AI, Autonomous Systems and Software. Among other things, she is also a fellow of the European AI Intelligence Association, a member of the European Commission High-Level Expert Group on AI, and a member of the World Economic Forum's Global AI Intelligence Council. So you hear, a real dignitary. Welcome up, Virginia Dignum.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, at least the dignitarium should be in the surname, Dignum. That's Tony. But thank you very much. Yes, it's my pleasure to be here. It's my pleasure to talk to you about artificial intelligence, how we can do it responsibly. And I will not focus too much on the labor market. You are all much more experts on the labor market than me. But a lot of what I will tell as a direct consequence for the labor market as well. And please, if you have any questions, let me know. And you can interrupt me during my speech. So I think we should start by thinking about what is AI. And we get to hear all kinds of strange definitions of what is AI, ranging from being a technology. Yes, it is a technology. Is one of the most currently what we see as a technology is that a technology that is able to do pattern matching and does that in a way that is stochastic and non-deterministic, which means we cannot really guarantee from the results of the past what the system will do in the future. And that's what makes it all the complex and the difficulties and the challenge that we have around AI. It is also often seen as just one next step in digitization, in a sense that everything is AI. And whatever you talk with, being a computer, the problem-solving, robots, IoT, cyber, everything is AI, and there is nothing anymore that it's not AI, which makes it quite complex to understand what we are talking about. Also what we are regulating, what we are defining and addressing. It is still, and this is the very old definition of AI, it's a field of science. It's the field of science that is concerned with understanding human intelligence by creating models for it. And that's what many of us, and I have been doing AI since the 80s, so AI is not such a new thing as you think. It's older than that, but I have been active in the field since '86. And that's kind of the idea that we in academia are still striving for. The other one, which the media thinks wants to make us believe, is a kind of a magic entity which comes out of the sky. We don't really know what it is. We know that it will be able to do anything and everything, and we have no control about it. So depending on what we understand as AI, it will influence how we address it and how we understand it and how we are able to regulate or to manage the system. And as you can see, taking any of these approaches, you can get to many different types of ways to address it. So continuing, AI is also not just an algorithm. Yes, we use algorithms in AI, but we use algorithms in any computer system, and we use algorithms every day. Every time that you add two numbers, you are using an algorithm. Every time that you bake an apple pie, you are using an algorithm. The recipe for the apple pie. And we all know that the quality of the apple pie is for a part depending on the recipe that we use, but it also has a lot to do with who is baking the apple pie and also what are the ingredients that we use. We can choose to bake an apple pie with organic apples and free-range eggs, or we can go for the cheapest margarine and whatever cheapest apples we get in the supermarket. And then the quality and the choices and the principles and the statement that we want to make with that apple pie is different. it. It's also not just about machine learning. Machine learning is one of the many techniques we use in AI, but there are many, many, many other techniques. And it's also not just about the data. Again, like the algorithms, we do need data, but the data itself is something that it's used. And the techniques that we use to analyze data are used in many, many other disciplines, and using the techniques that we use are not necessarily all AI or intelligent techniques. What does AI is a system that, a computational system, which for some degree is able to operate autonomously. It means it doesn't really need a direct interaction or intervention from the user to do something, does it in a way by perceiving and sensing the environment in where it interacts, and adapting to what it perceives in that environment, and moreover does that in an environment where we are also part of. So it makes decisions about us, for us, and using our environment. Given this, we also have to realize that the system is not alone. There is a whole social technical system around it. There are the institutions which allow or regulate what the systems can do or not. There are the people who develop, who deploy, who manage, who operate this type of systems. There are the users, and there are all of us which are one way or another affected by it. So when we talk about the regulation and the responsibility for this AI systems, we should address the social technical system around the software. It's not about making responsible software. Software is just a machine, it's a tool. We don't blame the hammer for what we do with the hammer. So we really have to address the whole system around it. And we also have to realize that AI is not intelligent at all. It is very good at finding patterns in images, in text, in photo, extrapolate this pattern to your data, take actions based on your data, but you can feed a system 20 million pictures of a cat, and it will be very good at identifying cats in other new pictures. It will also, you can do the same with cancer cells, with all types of images or texts or videos. It will be very good understanding or identifying cats in other pictures, but it will be, with the techniques that we are using nowadays, will be never able to understand what is the meaning of a cat. It will never be able to tell you that the cat meows, or that the cat is a mammal, or that the cat, knowing what you know about cats, are able to say something about chickens or dogs or elephants. So it is not intelligent in the way that we are intelligent. And because of that, it's also very easy to trick these systems. And there are a whole field of research nowadays on concentrating on tricking these systems. So you add a little bit of noise or pixels to the picture, and right away the thing goes wrong. You turn the picture slightly around, or you focus in and out, and things go very quickly wrong, because the system doesn't know what is a panda or a vulture or whatever else. The system is just looking at pixels. The system is identifying wolves by the number of white pixels in the picture, because wolves are usually pictured in snow for whatever reason. And those type of combinations is what makes AI the complex and the challenging system. So if you don't know why the system is identifying a picture as containing a wolf, or as containing a cancer cell, or as containing or deciding that whatever type of combination of data should get a mortgage or not, if we don't understand why, we have to be very careful about the social technical system around it that allows us or not to use these systems. You can go further. You can go physically change and alter reality, and AI will go a bit wrong. I wouldn't want this type of cars using this type of technology. And this one is one which they did. Like I said, there is a whole active field of research on trying to trick AI into doing strange things. But even if you don't trick the stop sign like that, not this year because the winter is not so bad in Umeå, but in a normal winter, no self-driving car could identify stop signs in Umeå because they are covered by snow. So we really have to be about responsibility. Yes, AI can do a lot, the first question we have to ask is, should it do it? And what should it do? And when are we comfortable that the system does that? And then the point here is the we. Who are we? Who is going to decide? It's me as a developer and as a researcher. Is the companies for you to work? Do we want some kind of a democratic process in which we all vote what AI should be doing or not? Which values should be considering? How are we going to balance between accuracy and safety, between privacy and security? All these are the discussions that is not the system is going to solve for us. These are the issues that we really have to think about ourselves. About these dilemmas, how we prioritize these systems and so on. So we want to use AI systems that are trustworthy, that are responsible. And by that we mean that these systems should be aligned with the law, should be ethical, meaning that they are aligned with our principles, should be reliable. We don't want these things to crash for whatever reason or make this type of faults and mistakes that I just showed, and should somehow be beneficial. Understanding or taking a stance of responsibility and trustworthiness for AI also means that we do have to realize fundamentally that the system is the artifact. We are the ones who set the purpose, and we are the ones who decide whether or not to use these systems. It's not only about what the system can do, but it's about whether the system should do something. And indeed, there is a lot of work and a lot of initiatives. And just on Wednesday, the European Union came with yet again another white paper describing how Europe is going to look at this type of systems. I was directly involved in the one from the European Union and the one from IEEE. There is one, actually there are a lot. The last time someone counted, there are 84 of this type of declarations, principles, and whatever thing. So if you are interested, you can follow Alan Winfield or Tim Dutton. They keep tracking who is developing this type of declarations, this type of principles and recommendations. But if we looked at them, they are not so different from each other. If we want to make statements about AI, no one wants to make a statement. Yes, we want unethical AI. Yes, we want to be responsible about AI. Now, of course, all of them are talking about we need transparency, we need to take care of diversity, human rights are really central to the whole thing, accountability. All of them are more or less the same. The problem here is that nice words are not things that I can, at the end of the day, program in the systems that I'm developing. And now we move from nice words to programs. That's where we have to start really discussing. Because what are we guiding, and what for are we doing that? And the fact that by endorsing it, we are not yet complying or ensuring any type of compliance. I will move a bit. Most of them are indeed aware of that and are working on that. But let's go back to the whole idea. Why are we all of a sudden, it seems, like I say, I have been in the field for many, many years. Most of those years I was very quiet in my office doing strange things that everybody would think, oh, forget those guys, they are completely useless. And all of a sudden, like 7 years ago, everybody's looking at AI. Why? Because nowadays, with the developments of the technologies of what we have been doing, there is this promise that AI is going to enable us to make better decisions. Of course, the issue here is better. Better for who? Who says what is better? But before we go into the better issue, let's think about what are the type of decisions that we would want AI systems to make. And if I give you an example of something which is often associated with an AI system, a self-driving car, just imagine, think a little, what do you think are decisions that the self-driving car should make? Anyone? Those things are going to drive for us, so they are going to make decisions. What type of decisions they make? When to stop, yes? Speed? You had something? Yeah. Planning the route from here to, I don't know, Chista, and knowing where the traffic jams are and so on. Yes, those are the decisions that we think and we feel comfortable, more or less, that the system could do. We probably don't think or don't want the self-driving cars to make this type of decisions. It's easy. If I know what your past is and how many times you went in the past to the McDonald's, the car can even weigh the guy and see if the weight has been changing since last time and so on. I can make a system that does this type of decisions. Why don't we want this type of decisions to be made by a system? And why are we all of a sudden worried and concerned that we want to build systems that are going to take decisions between life and death, between choosing of killing the old lady one side or the chicken on the other side, and all those trolley problems that we get again and again? So it's really about, and what decisions and which decisions should the system make is not a decision that the system itself makes. It's a decision that we make and that we have to be responsible for. When should the system decide? It's not just about these trolley problems. There are many more than that. It's about taking this type of decisions between accuracy versus explainability. Are we comfortable with the surgeon robot, which is 95% accurate, but will never explain or never be able to describe what was the reason for doing something? Or do we prefer a system that is 80% accurate, but can always explain what it's doing? These are the decisions that we have to make. It's about using chatbots. It's about, do we want to support people, or do we want to ensure self-determination of people? It's about building systems that are so human-like that we don't know anymore whether we are speaking to a person or to a system. Is that good? Is that not good? Is possible? Yes, we already have many examples of that. But when should we use this type of systems? And when should we leave the self-determination of the patient or of the elderly or of whoever above the support that the systems can provide it? It's about manufacturing. It's about efficiency of automated manufacturing versus the jobs that might be lost by this. It's about thinking of the social and environmental well-being, and it's about looking at the collective versus individual profit of using this type of things. It's also about the environment. AI systems use a lot of energy. And if I want to make a system which is 0.1% more accurate, I will use probably 5% more energy than before. If I want to build a system that is more explanatory than the ones I have now, I will use also a lot. I need more computational power to do that. So the choice is also, do we want more explanation, or do we want more environmentally correct systems? And how much explanation do I feel comfortable to use more, especially if we are using non-renewable energy, how much energy is a better explanation worth? These are the decisions that we have to make. And these are the decisions that we really need to take together. And then we have to understand which values are important for us. And these values can come from society, can come from law, can come from ethics. Again, who is going to decide how we make these choices and these trade-offs? Because do we want to vote? I already said that before. Every time and decide democratically about all these type of things at any moment, or when in the whole process of decision do we want to take a participatory collective decision on it? Because the systems, if you take law and social acceptance and ethically acceptability, these things are not aligned. And we know many examples from the past. We know examples from different countries in which things which we find socially acceptable are not legally allowed. Things change from one country to another, change from one place to another. What is morally or ethically acceptable is sometimes not the social thing to do. And again, we have to make these choices. And these are the choices which we have really to, because fundamentally this means what are we doing as people, and what do we really want, and what are our real deeper values. It has very little to do with the technology that we are using for it. But somehow AI and the fact that AI is going to take decisions for us is really forcing us to take and to think about these decisions. So we have to take responsibility. And we can take that in different ways. We can look at the process through which we build this system, so how we go about consulting, involving, deciding which values, which processes, how, when people are involved or not. So the whole process and the societal discussing and understanding the ethical and societal implications. We can also look at that by design, like often we talk about privacy by design or ethics by design. So we can try to build systems which behavior, so the results of the system, are guaranteed to be aligned with a certain set of principles. That's another option. And the last option is to look at the designers or the stakeholders themselves, and really looking at the integrity of the institutions and the stakeholders which are involved around it. So if we talk about each of them by one, in design is basically having the process which allow you to do the right thing and to do it right. And that's an adagio that in software engineering comes for a long time. If we take it for artificial intelligence systems, which we just saw it like that, means that we have to have a responsibility when we are giving autonomy to systems. And it's not the system that is responsible to, it's the socio-technical system that has to take this responsibility. If we are using systems that adapt and change in stochastic and non-deterministic ways, we need some type of transparency. We need some way to understand how these systems are. And if these systems are interacting with us, we need them to be able to provide account of what they are doing, because trust is based on the capability for accounting for what you do. So we need ART, A-R-T. If we look at the design, the dream or the idea that people try to make you believe is that we would like to have systems in which we build inside the system the ethics, and then all of a sudden the system is ethical. And by being ethical, it will be always the same, the right thing. We all know that being ethical and doing always the right thing is not always the same thing. So first we need to understand ethics, we need to understand what it means to use ethics, and of course then being ethical. And the question is not only whether we can teach ethics to AI, again if we make things deterministic and specific, explicit enough, we can always implement a set of rules in a system. But what does it mean? And what we need? And the decisions that matter are not the system decisions, but is our own decisions on how to build this type of systems and how to interpret this type of ethical principles. For instance, I would like to build a system that is fair, and that's again one of the issues that we hear again and again, that it's important to have fairness, that the system does not discriminate, that there are no bias and so on. Yes, I want to build a system that is fair, and now think of what fairness means. And probably all of us are thinking of a different definition. For instance, fairness can mean we give everybody equal resources, or fairness can mean we give everybody equal opportunities. If you are going to implement it, it can get to quite different results. And again, there come the results. Again, these systems are not static, so things will change. Kids will grow, people will get old and need a box to sit on, the fence might disappear, so we have to ensure that our definition of fairness, whatever it is aligned with the changes and the evolution and the adaptability of the system. So what we are working now in Umeå is about trying to make explicit how are we interpret this type of concepts into the implementation, into the requirements that we give to the software that is being built. And by making this explicit, then we want to be able to check whether the system is indeed aligned with this type of things. And then we are saying that the system is being fair because we take a very narrow and very explicit and very small definition of fairness, which is the one that we implement into the system. But if we are explicit about that, then we can get a discussion. You can tell me, no, I don't really like your definition of fairness. I prefer another one. And then we know. But in most cases, in the systems that we see around, no one really knows or understands how this type of principles have been built. The last one, about our own. The AI principles are not for the AI system, are for us. All these regulations is not something which you give to the system and tell, okay, this is the regulations you take, please go read it, and the systems can read, or at least do something with it. It's about the certification, the standards, the codes of conduct of everybody involved. It's also about ensuring that not all of us need to be experts in AI. Not all of us are experts in automation or in automotive, and we all drive cars even without understanding how the car works. So it's about creating this level of trust and this level of accountability and the possibilities to have redress or to complain to someone. These are the issues we need really to take into account. Because if I go to the supermarket, can you tell me if these eggs are free range? If you go to the supermarket, can you buy free range eggs? And you trust they are free range eggs? Yes. Why? Because they have some kind of sticker on it. And the point is, of course, things will go wrong, and we all know stories about stickers of certifications which were not really applied the right way. But in a sense, we have these trusted third parties, people who do understand about eggs, and understand about chickens, understand about the life conditions of the chickens and of the laborers that work with the chickens, and can check those against some principles, and we trust those people to do the job for us. At this moment, we don't have no one, no agency or no capability to go ask, is this system more trustworthy than this one? Is this system more fair than this one? How is the privacy of this system in comparison? We really need, and we don't need all of us to go understand how these things are. Yes, it's good that this AI systems provides us explanation, but the explanation should be at a level that we don't really have to first to read a few technical systems books before we can understand that. So maybe we should start thinking about ways to certify AI and to enable this trust in the systems that are used, that we know that when police is going to use this prediction algorithms to know where they are going to put their cars, that we know that the systems they use are minimally bias-free and inclusive enough. That we know that when the bank is using AI system to determine whether or not we get a mortgage, that system is also aligned with the principles that we stand for and that we expect the bank to stand for. So there are a lot of approaches to regulation and complementary to regulation. We don't have to go and regulate or make legal everything, create laws for everything. So we can look at standards, and IEEE and ISO are really looking at many different types of standards. We can look about ethics officers and advisory panels. We can talk about the certifications. We can, at the end of the day, really invest in education and training. We really have to understand what's there. Because, and I'm getting to the end, AI is able to give a lot of answers. We need to change our education into creating a new generation which is able to ask the right questions. Because if we don't know how to ask the questions, we don't really know how to deal with this type of systems. And just as the end, I want to tell you a little bit on the Swedish context. I'm leading this new program funded by the Wallenberg Foundation. You mentioned that at the beginning. It's a program in which really a research program, but will include a lot of possibilities for collaboration with organizations and companies in Sweden and public agencies. We really focus on the understanding and making fundamental research on the impact of AI on humanity and society, and really taking into account that AI is not just the technology, it's also the humanities and the society which is involved around that. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, there is the website there. I also have a few folders you can ask me. But for the rest, thank you.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I'm surprised you've been in this field since the 80s, and we've only just starting to hear about it. But I'm wondering about the name. You say that AI is not intelligent, so why is it even called artificial intelligence? Why not artificial patterns, or I don't know?
Yes, that's a very good point. The name came from a paper in the 50s, so it's even older than me. And that's indeed about this idea which I referred at the beginning, that AI would be this field of research in which we try to understand human intelligence by artificial means. So it's not, the artificial intelligence is not really focusing on the intelligence of the system, but it's really focused on the artificial models that enable us to. But indeed, I do agree that for the technology and for the impact that we are seeing now, maybe the name is not the best one.
But it's established,
it sticks,
so we're not going to try to change it here.
No.
All these questions you asked about what is a better decision and what decisions are made by AI and by us and how AI makes decisions, do you ever think of the risk that forces with purposes that are not for the good of humankind will use AI for their own purposes?
Yes, of course. Any technology or any tool can be used for good or for bad. You can use the hammer for building your house or to beat someone else in the head. The point is that if we don't have this discussion in a democratic and in an open and free way, we are going to leave the decisions to those dark forces.
Yes, and
we are not really having the impact or the interventions that we want. So we really need to start thinking about this and also feel empowered to decide on what type of technologies or what type of uses, what type of sectors we feel that we are comfortable and trust that the systems are going to be used for good, and which are the type of fields in which we don't really trust. We don't really trust that. So we really need to understand, to discuss, and to be involved in the decision.
Can you elaborate a bit more about the risks? What kind of fields could the risks be within, and the bad purposes?
It can be all kinds of things, and we are seeing them. A lot of the risks, so there are two types of risks. They are risks which are, or dangers that are built purposefully, that people use in a conscious and purposeful way a type of technology for bad. And that I'm not going there because you can all imagine all types of things you can for that. But there are the most difficult risks are the ones in which people think you are doing it well and you are not taking everything into account. One of the most known type of examples on this is the issue of bias. It's no one, or most people are not built systems to be biased. Systems result in bias because we are biased, and because the data we use to train and to inform these systems is based on our own decisions. So if the data is always about the past, we don't have data about the future, by definition. We only have data about the past. If in the past the decisions have been biased, and for instance, and unfortunately in job recruitment, those decisions in the past have been proven to be biased towards white males. Of course, the data that the system gets is that. And the system, like I say, it's not intelligent. It's just finding patterns. If it finds a pattern between white male and got the position and black woman and didn't got the position, and those things are enforced after 20 million of this type of examples, it's the only thing it can conclude is that white male is correlated with getting the position. It is not making a judgment, it's just correlating things. It's not really looking at causalities. It's not because you are a white male that you got the job. That's not what the system sees, but it just sees this correlation. There is a high percentage. And those are the type of issues in which the dangers of using these systems are. We don't know how the system are correlating things, and we are feeding it with data that is not the proper data.
And what is potentially the utmost important purpose of AI for humankind, would you say? Is there one thing you can point out as the most important field?
I wouldn't say a field, but it's indeed the fact that AI can help us making decisions, making better decisions. It's up to us to decide what is better, but then we have the technology which really helps us. Reality is getting so complex that we cannot ourselves solve the problems we created. We cannot solve seemingly the climate change. We cannot solve inequality in the world. But by using this type of technologies that really are good at making decisions, and we combine that with democratic and participatory and open discussion about what is the better decision, then we do have the tools to do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Virginia Dignum.